Yoichi is a dumb, foolish samurai who has always lived as a savage in the mountains. He's then sent to the city to learn a thing or two about modern life and has to live with the Ikaruga sisters. Despite his degenerate attitude, he brings life to their household and also has to deal with numerous assassins who were sent to take him out. On his way back from fishing, Yoichi encounters numerous traps on the way that were set up by his insane father. After maneuvering his way through the traps, his father jumps out from the woods to attack him, but the foolish old man is no match for his son. When they got back home, his father decided to send him to the city so that he could learn more about the outside world. The idiotic man was also sad that he was no match for his son, who had become insanely overpowered. When Yoichi leaves, his father sends a letter with an arrow to the Ikaruga family, who are also known to practice the Uchiha kamikaze sword style. In the Ikaruga household, Ibuki gets the letter and informs her sisters that Yoichi will be coming to stay with them. Ayame was against the idea of letting a foreigner creep into their home, but she didn't have much of a choice. Meanwhile, Yoichi finally arrived in the city, but everyone saw him as a weirdo because of the way he was dressed. He suddenly bumped into a delinquent known as Washizu, but Yoichi knocked out the foolish guy before he could land a punch. Because of that, he ended up getting arrested by the police. When he got to the station, he enjoyed a cup of tea before quickly leaving to meet with Ibuki and the rest. He rushed to the mall, but because he was an incompetent idiot, he had no idea where he was supposed to meet up with them exactly. The girls got tired of waiting for him, and they all went to attend to different matters. Yoichi was new to the escalators in the mall, so he tripped into a cart and ended up barging into Ayame, who was in the changing room. In a bid to stop her from screaming, he got a good feel of her melons. The mall police rushed in to figure out what was happening, but he quickly rushed to tackle a burglar who stole a purse from an old lady. After causing a lot of trouble, he bumped into Kagome, who was lost and decided to help her find her way back to Ibuki. Thanks to Ibuki's huge melons, they were able to spot her, and Yoichi delivered the little girl while still getting chased by the police. Later that evening, he is finally introduced to Ibuki. The police still arrested him, but Yoichi apologized for causing trouble to everyone, and he was finally let go. Ibuki takes him back to their dojo, and he meets Kagome, Ayame, and Chihaya, whom he all had weird encounters with. The next morning, Ibuki met Yoichi practicing his sword style, and marveled at how skilled he was. Yoichi wanted to help her clean the dojo, but she refused and ended up soaked after they struggled for the bucket of water. Yoichi got a nosebleed as soon as he saw how alluring Ibuki looked. It didn't help matters when she saw the ridiculous haiku that he wrote about her. She then sent the fool flying into Ayame's room. He crashed into the room through the windows and ended up grabbing Ayame's little mountains in his hands once again. Ibuki and the rest of the girls showed up to the room, and she beat him to a pulp once more for having his way with Ayame. The two sisters then took him to Yako Private High School, but Ayame told him not to speak to her while they were there because she still hated his repulsive guts. Yoichi ended up in the same class as Washizu and Ibuki. Later on, the other girls asked Ibuki why Yoichi was staying with her because they thought he was lying down the pipe when no one was looking. When she got back to class, she saw Yoichi surrounded by some girls who were asking him questions. She called him out and gave him a good beating, then told him to stop drooling over every person who wore a skirt. Washizu saw what was happening between them and challenged Yoichi to fight in order to restore his honor. Yoichi thought the battle was going to be fair, but Washizu whipped out a spike ball in the middle of their brawl. He got upset and beat the foolish delinquent to a pulp with just his bare fists. Washizu was humiliated in front of the whole school, but Ibuki and Ayame admired how strong of a swordsman Yoichi was. Ibuki gave Washizu a handkerchief to clean up his wounds, but the fool thought that the girl was hitting on him. Yoichi and Ibuki started getting closer, and this made Ayame jealous because she wanted his sausage all to herself. It was also revealed that there was an academic rivalry between the two sisters. When they got back home, Yoichi suddenly had a fever. Ayame decided to prepare a meal to make him feel better, and Ibuki left the house for Chihaya to take care of while she went out to shop for some stuff. Later on, Yoichi found out that Ibuki had to step up as the parent of the house when their real parents went on a journey and left the dojo. Ayame got help from Kagome since her cooking skills were catastrophic. She went to give the meal to Yoichi but found him and Ibuki apologizing to each other and laughing over things. This made her more jealous because she always lost to Ibuki in everything and no one ever noticed her. Yoichi chased after her and caught the food when she tripped. He had a taste of it and complimented her cooking. For the first time in a while, Ayame finally had a smile on her face and she wasn't looking like an ugly wretch. Ayame joins Ibuki and Yoichi to clean up the dojo the next morning, thanks to the silly advice she got from Chihaya. It was obvious that she was doing her best to be noticed by Yoichi, and her rival was Ibuki. In school, a new very shy girl known as Tsubasa joined Yoichi's class, and she was the type to turn on all the stupid degenerates who were there. Yoichi commented on how cute Tsubasa looked, which made Ibuki give him the beating of a lifetime. Meanwhile, Angela, who was watching over the little brat, thought that Tsubasa wanted to secretly become friends with Yoichi before eliminating him. On the other hand, Tsubasa had no plans of defeating him because she wanted to stay longer in the school. During break time, everyone gathered around Tsubasa and tried to get to know her better, but the poor girl couldn't answer any of their questions because she grew up like an idiotic savage in the mountains. Any answer she would have given would have made her look like a useless wretch. She unconsciously deflated a soccer ball that someone mistakenly shot toward her, and this caught Yoichi's attention. On her way home, Tsubasa bumped into Wahizu and immediately fell in love with him. She started fantasizing about making babies, but Angela interrupted her and came to talk about her mission. Tsubasa quickly used a substitution jutsu and ran away from the crazy woman because she just wanted to live a normal life. When she bumped into Yoichi and Ibuki, Angela appeared and stripped the young girl of her clothes. Aside from the obvious defilement of children that went on, Tsubasa suddenly turned into a mindless martial artist zombie. Washizu bumped into their fight and completely misread the situation once again. He covered Tsubasa with his jacket and decided to fight Yoichi in her stead. This dumb fool really never knows when to give up. Feeling embarrassed, Tsubasa immediately ran away from there. Later that evening, Angela confronted Yoichi and he sliced her clothes to shreds. The mountains on her chest were revealed, and that was all the foolish samurai could look at for the rest of the evening. Angela revealed that she was hired by someone to take him down, and in return, she would be able to revive her Tsubame Benten martial arts style. Yoichi settled the fight by using his talk no jutsu like Naruto, and Angela fled the scene. Angela returned to Tsubasa and they both apologized to each other. The next day, Ibuki showed her gratitude because of the way Yoichi complimented how she handled the dojo. They later bumped into Angela and Tsubasa, who were now working part-time at a restaurant. Tsubasa handled deliveries because of her Hulk-like strength while Angela was doing the cooking. In the dojo, Yoichi and Ibuki were sparring in order to teach Ibuki's students how to fight properly with the sword. The sparring session was going well until Yoichi ripped Ibuki's clothes and gave the young kids a view of her melons, which was too much for their ages. She beat him up, and the poor kids also got pummeled for getting turned on as well. After that, Ayame went to take a bath, and she tried to replay the fight between Yoichi and Ibuki with her fingers. Chihaya interrupted her because she was having trouble finishing her manga and decided to take a bath to see if it would help. After teasing Ayame, she decided to collect data from Yoichi by doing inappropriate things to him. Yoichi gets dragged to Chihaya's room, and he compliments her on the manga she drew. This makes her happy, and she starts trying to get Yoichi's sausage into her. But the samurai is a man of honor, so he refuses her advances and tells her not to strip so easily for a man. Chihaya didn't help the poor idiot when Ibuki walked into the room and Yoichi got beat to a pulp by the crazy girl. After the fiasco, Ibuki thanks Yoichi for making Chihaya smile, since she's always busy with her work. The next day, he got chased by Ibuki for being a spineless fool as usual, which made him bump into Kagame and break her art project. Ibuki decided to fix the project and send Yoichi to return Chihaya's notebook to her. When Yoichi got to the school, he mistakenly entered the girls' bathroom and caused a ruckus. This must be the reason he was secluded in the mountains for years. Luckily, he was able to meet up with Chihaya and return her notebook to her. On his way out, he saw some ugly delinquents who were talking trash about Chihaya. They hinted at having ruined her work, and Yoichi rushed off to see what happened. He got to her class and saw that they had torn up her manga to pieces. Yoichi got upset and was about to send them to their makers, but Chihaya stopped him. She tossed him out of the class and started crying like a little brat because of what they had done to her precious work. Despite her words, Yoichi was moved by Chihaya's tears, and he proceeded to rough up the boys who made her cry. By the end of the day, he still got in trouble with Ibuki and Ayame because they were jealous of him and Chihaya's sudden closeness. The next day in school, Yoichi got asked out on a date by a girl known as Hinagata. He mistakes it for a duel, and Ibuki has to explain the concept of a date to his rotting brain. She still got upset that he was giving his attention to other girls, and it made her look like a deranged witch. She got worried that he would disgrace the name of the Yukaha kamikaze style, so she asked Yoichi to go on a practice date with her. When they got out, Yoichi wasted no time in making himself look like a creepy fool, and Ibuki had to knock some sense into him. They went to a shopping mall, where Yoichi got some normal clothes so he would stop looking like a weirdo. After making sure that he got a good feel of her milk jugs, Ibuki showed interest in some plushies, and Yoichi found them cute. After that, they went bowling, and Ayame watched them from afar. Ibuki had to teach the idiotic boy how to bowl, but they just ended up being nuisances to all the other customers there. Chihaya and Kagome joined Ayame to spy on the lovebirds. After engaging in some fun activities, the lovebirds were walking outside when Ibuki tried to hold Yoichi's hands. For some reason, the foolish boy turned around at that moment, and Ibuki tripped. He tried to catch her, and they ended up falling into a fountain together. They got into an awkward position that was normal for first-timers who were ready to do the deed, but they quickly separated themselves. Yoichi then gave her the plushie that she had admired earlier, and it made her insides jump for joy. Realizing that the whole day was just for practice, Ibuki ran out to get some drinks. While she was out, Hinagata met up with Yoichi, and he turned down her request for a date. After getting rejected, she brought out a bow staff and began attacking Yoichi. She must have been really desperate to get a taste of his sausage. At the same time, Ibuki was confronted by some guys who weren't happy that she was hanging out with Yoichi, and they felt like they were the better options. Yoichi defeated Hinagata by messing up her clothes, and he then confronted Chihaya and Kagome, who were watching the fight. The three of them rushed to Ibuki's side after hearing her voice. When they got there, they saw that the crazy girl had already dealt with her assailants. Back at home, Yoichi told Ibuki that he declined his date because he felt it was an event meant for two people who were in love with each other. Washizu, on the other hand, was still trying to figure out how to return Ibuki's handkerchief to her. He got beaten up by Ibuki, who was chasing Yoichi for looking at a naked sculpture of a lady in art class. The foolish samurai got a nosebleed, and this made her want to skin him alive. In the infirmary, Washizu started daydreaming about returning the handkerchief by putting it in her shoe locker with a love note as well. The idiot mistook her locker for Yoichi's own, so the foolish samurai ended up with the letter in her place. Yoichi mistakenly thought that he was interested in martial arts and invited him to the dojo. The musclehead only agreed when Ibuki invited him over as well. He probably saw it as an opportunity to satisfy his degenerate urges. He also returned the handkerchief to her via Yoichi. Meanwhile, an assassin known as Jinjuru was sent to kill Yoichi. When Washizu got to the dojo, he met the little miscreants who were also students there. He was hoping to learn under Ibuki, but because he was new, he was assigned to Yoichi. Washizu would get hit by Yoichi every time the fool got distracted by Ibuki's milk jugs. When Ayame got home, she saw Yoichi getting scolded by Ibuki because he ended up beating out what little sense Washizu still had in him. She got jealous again and went to her room to sulk like a wimp. With extra money from Chihaya's manga reprinting, Chihaya and Kagome buy food and drink for the newcomer. Yoichi felt bad for the way he treated Washizu earlier, and decided to do 1,000 push-ups. Washizu decided to join the fool because he thought that Yoichi was just trying to show off to Ibuki. The other students counted the reps for them as the two brickheads got closer to the pearly gates. After they got to 1,000 push-ups, Washizu swore to never come to such a crazy dojo again. Chihaya and Kagome then brought some food as a welcome feast for them. Ibuki ended up feeding Washizu, and Ayame did the same for Yoichi. The next day, they all go to the beach, but Washizu doesn't show up because he thought the event was going to be the next day. Angela and Tsubasa showed up as well. All the girls had their milk jugs basking in the sun, and it appealed to degenerates like you. When Angela saw Yoichi's muscles, it made her want to make babies on the spot, and she did a bad job trying to hide her feelings. Meanwhile, the Mizunagi brothers were sent by the same client to assassinate Yoichi while they were having fun. Ayame felt bad that she was as flat as a work desk, and she tried to stuff her melons so they would look bigger. Yoichi, who had the worst timing known to man, mistakenly walked in on her when her strap broke and got the beating of his life again. One of the Mizunagi brothers released a bird to attack the group, and it immediately flew to attack the girls. Yoichi tried to defend the ladies but ended up embarrassing them by grabbing all their inappropriate areas. It was only Angela who noticed that the bird was trying to attack them. They later decided to swim, but Yoichi was drowning, and Ibuki came to his rescue. Kagome was asked to join them, but she ran off, and one of the kids, known as Masashi, ran after her. Kagome fell into a cavern, and she broke her fall by landing on Masashi. After a while, the others went to search for the little miscreants since they hadn't returned. The sisters started blaming themselves for making Kagome run away, but Yoichi cheered them up. Masashi and Kagome found an exit, but unfortunately it led to the edge of a cliff, and at the bottom was just the sea. Masashi tripped over and held onto a branch with his sprained arm. When the others caught up to them, the little brat fell into the water. Yoichi jumped inside to save the boy, but the incompetent fool forgot that he didn't know how to swim. The Minazuki brothers then showed up to ambush Yoichi. Kagome then jumped in the water to save her little lover while Yoichi dealt with the assassins. Later on, Kagome revealed that she didn't want to swim because she was hiding her melons, which were surprisingly more significant than Iame's own. Because of that, the little girl always tied them up with a cloth. Washizu was finally determined to confess his feelings for Ibuki, and he ran over to the dojo to meet her. He stops over at a shop to grab a drink, and coincidentally, Ian grabs the same bottle. They get into an argument, and some people mistake them for a stupid couple that always argues over everything. At the dojo, Washizu chickens out like a wimp and fails to give his love letter to Ibuki. Iam also tried to hand over a towel to Yoichi, but just ended up insulting the fool and making herself look like a deranged bully. When Washizu's love letter fell out of his clothes, he quickly tore it up before Iam could read it. He then mistakenly fell on her. Tsubasa was delivering ramen to the dojo, and when she got there, she saw the love of her life on top of another woman. She misread the situation and ran away with her shattered heart. During the break time, Chihaya talked about Washizu's history as a delinquent and how he defeated the strongest group known as Skull Union in the 8th grade. Despite his history, Washizu was nothing like the scary gorilla he was known for. When Yoichi went to Angela's restaurant, he saw members of the Skull Union talking about Washizu, and they thought about beating up the dumb bully since he had become so soft. The Skull Union guys took Iam as a hostage and confronted Washizu, who was on his way home. They stripped Iam and took lewd pictures of her, threatening to let the internet know how flat she is if Washizu doesn't cooperate. Washizu got his butt handed to him, but Yoichi showed up to save the fool. He lent Washizu a hand, and together they took down the gang members in the blink of an eye. Ibuki showed up and assumed that Yoichi was the one who left Iam in such a vulnerable state. The stupid blonde girl didn't even try to explain what happened before Yoichi got beaten up by Ibuki. Washizu, being the dumbest person in this show, assumed that Ibuki was flirting with the samurai. Iam tried to give Washizu a towel to use and clean up, but he told her to make sure that she gave it to Yoichi instead. During training the next day, Yoichi continued to hit Washizu with his wooden stick anytime he started daydreaming about Ibuki. Washizu ran out of the dojo and decided to finally confess his feelings for Ibuki's melons. Iam mistakenly heard his confession, and the flat-screen TV thought he was confessing his love for her. Iam couldn't believe that someone managed to confess to her and not her sister. She was definitely about to have her world shattered. Since Yoichi felt like he was an incompetent piece of garbage, Iam was assigned to spar with Washizu. The two of them started seriously fighting when Washizu tried to explain her misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Chihaya and Kagome were filling up their mouths with something white and creamy because the weather was so hot. With a festival coming up, Washizu planned to set things straight and hook up Iam with Yoichi during the event. He and Torigaya rigged a ballot box, which placed people up as pairs to explore the different areas of the festival. Sadly, it didn't turn out as planned. He got paired up with Iam, Yoichi was with Ibuki, and Torigaya was paired with Chihaya and Kagome. It was all thanks to Torigaya being a dumb fool because he switched up the numbers 6 and 9. While wandering around, Yoichi bumped into Sajinomiya Akayo, who was the one who had been sending assassins after him. Washizu was still regretting the fact that he had to walk around with the ugliest sister of the Ikaruga household. He tried to show off his fish scooping skills but only ended up looking more stupid to Iam. Yoichi went to a shooting gallery owned by the Sajinomiya siblings and desperately tried to win a prize. It was definitely rigged against him, but Ibuki showed up and won a free trip to a hot spring. Washizu cleared up the misunderstanding with Iam and proceeded to run off with Ibuki, giving her time to use her charms on Yoichi. It was later that Ishizu realized that he grabbed Tsubasa's hand instead of Ibuki's. The fool wasn't smart enough to know the girl he was even kidnapping. Tsubasa was wearing a costume that would definitely turn off any guy who approached her. It's then later revealed that Akayo has been longing to stuff his sausage in Ibuki, and he had an unhealthy obsession with her. Yoichi and his group of milk jugs arrive at the hot spring resort that Ibuki won a free trip to earlier. They were really amazed at how massive and luxurious the place was. Yoichi decided to go for a stroll, while the girls went to soak themselves in the hot spring. He was invited to join them, but he declined in order to escape the wrath of the insane Ibuki. Later at night, Akayo joins Yoichi in the spring. He told Yoichi that he was nothing but a hindrance to the girls since all he did was freeload around their house. As they had dinner, the old lady who served them said that the inn hadn't had any customers due to rumors of ghosts haunting the place. There was a cave that was used as a jail for criminals behind the inn, and the dead criminals were thought to be ghosts. Yoichi decided to go exorcise the ghosts, and Ibuki said she would join him. Chihaya then advised Ayame to join them so that Ibuki wouldn't hoard Yoichi's windpipe all to herself. Regardless, the flat-chested fool didn't go because she was afraid of ghosts. When she left, the inn was filled with sleeping gas, which knocked out Chihaya and Kagome. The old lady was then revealed to Akayo's sister, Saken. Yoichi and Ibuki got separated when the ground beneath them caved in and they fell into it. He went to search for her but bumped into Ayame, who was suddenly in the cave as well. Ayame started acting weird and decided that was the best time to satisfy her urges and have Yoichi to herself. Meanwhile, Akayo met up with Ibuki, but she couldn't remember who the ugly fool was. Yoichi knew he was being tricked because there was no way that Ayame would act like that with him. Also, the imposter's melons were bigger than what the real Ayame had on her chest. The fake was revealed to be Saken, and she released the sleeping gas as she was found out. Ibuki was taken as a hostage, while Yoichi struggled his way back to the inn. There, he was confronted by Hinagata and a horde of other assassins who wanted to put his head as a trophy on their walls. He defeated all of them but was confronted by Jinjuru when he found Chihaya and Kagome. Ayame tried to save Yoichi before he got turned into a shish kebab, but he still ruined the moment by making sure that she was the real flat-chested Ayame that he knew. After defeating the rest of the assassins, he went back to the inn with the other sisters and found Ibuki, who couldn't remember who they were. Thanks to the sleeping gas, Ibuki's mind reverted to when she was 4 years old, and she started acting like an annoying brat. She didn't believe how grown-up Ayame and Chihaya had become. Also, because of how young she was in her mind, she had no idea who Kagome was and refused to acknowledge her as a little sister. This broke the little girl's heart, and it started to cause issues between the sisters. In the evening, Yoichi and Ayame were talking outside, and he asked her if Akayo was really Ibuki's fiancé. Ayame wanted to know what he would do if Ibuki ended up marrying Akayo, but she couldn't bring herself to confess her feelings. The next day, Ibuki's students saw the scary strength of a grown-up who thought she was a 4-year-old girl. It was a miracle that she didn't send the little brats to their makers. The Sajinomiya siblings then suddenly showed up at the dojo. The devilish siblings explained that Ibuki was acting weird because in her heart she wanted to go back to when she didn't have to worry about her family in the dojo. At the same time, Ibuki bumped into Washizu and asked him to take her away. Washizu finally saw the chance to become her prince in shining armor. Back at the dojo, Akayo offered to give the Ikaruga sisters the life of celebrities, and in return for that, he would take Ibuki until the antidote for her condition was ready. Yoichi and Akayo left to talk in the practice room about how useless Yoichi was. Angela walked in, and Akayo suggested that he join her in a different dojo to train there, so that he would leave the Ikaruga household. At the same time, Wahizu gets knocked out and Ibuki gets kidnapped by the Sajinomiya siblings. Yoichi was about to leave the dojo, but when he saw Kagome crying and clinging to her art project, he decided to try and bring Ibuki back to her normal senses. The group left to get her back, and Tsubasa tried taking Washizu to the hospital. Yoichi and his lackluster harem arrived at the Sajinomiya residence and tried to figure out a way to cross the water surrounding the castle. With a makeshift raft, they crossed the water, but the Akayo and Saken prepared to get rid of them. Yoichi and his group get confronted by Saken when they enter the castle, and she reveals that Akayo plans to marry Ibuki. What a desperate piece of garbage. Saken orders her maids to shoot at Yoichi's group, but he blocks all the bullets with his wooden sword. She released her special sleeping gas, but it backfired on her maids when Yoichi reversed it with his wind sword style. He begged her to return Ibuki, but the fool got slapped and Saken ran away, saying that her brother was already long gone. They chased after her but got stalled by another army of brainless butlers. Yoichi got knocked down when he let down his guard, but Washizu and Tsubasa intervened before he was sent to the pearly gates. Angela and Torigea, who had suddenly gotten younger, showed up and aided in the battle as well. Saken blew up the bridge, but Yoichi and the Ikaruga sisters managed to cross. Washizu and his group stayed behind to take care of the enemies. Angela then stripped Tsubasa, which was a cause to call child protection services, but this caused the little girl to go into her full killing mode. Saken tried to stop her brother from getting married, but he was already too far gone. She felt bad that her brother thought nothing of her because all he wanted was to fill Ibuki with his seeds. Yoichi crashed the wedding, and Ibuki started showing signs that her memories were returning. Akayo escaped with her and left Sakin to take care of the rest. Yoichi chased Akayo to the roof, and they both fought for the love of Ibuki and her milk jugs. Ibuki's memories finally came back after Akayo was utterly defeated like the fool he was. She fell off the roof, and her siblings chased after her. Sakin held her brother back from jumping into the water, but Yoichi and his group managed to survive the fall. When they got back home, Yoichi sent a letter to his father, telling him that he still wanted to stay with the Ikaruga family and learn more. His father thought the boy had become a complete good-for-nothing and ignored the letter. Yoichi spent his remaining days trying to get closer to the sisters and hopefully make babies when the time was right.